Okay, I can see our participants steadily going up, so I think we'll get started. Welcome to the GRIST Top 10 Australian Sales Contact Centres webinar. I am your MC, Kate Ziegler, and I'm a director at GRIST. Now, before we get started, I've got some quick housekeeping for you. Please stay on mute. We are recording this webinar, and for everyone who registered today, you will get an email with a link to the recording that we welcome you to share. We're going to have time for questions at the end of the session. Please put your questions in the chat anytime, and we'll do our best to answer them when we get to that session. And lastly, for the best viewing experience, please put on speaker view. So you can access this in the top right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. Drop down the view icon and select speaker view if you haven't already. I would point to your exits and toilets, but I think you can all handle that on your own. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with GRIST's Top 10, we've been analysing and benchmarking customer conversations for over 15 years, which means we have tens of thousands of the good, the bad and the ugly when it comes to what a sales or service conversation sounds like in Australia. We've extensively researched what separates the good from the great and pinpointed the key micro-behaviours that exceptional sales and service agents do differently to build our behavioural benchmarks and assessment process. So every year we conduct the top 10 analysis to assess the state of the sales conversation across the Australian contact centre industry, and really to recognise those who are demonstrating an outstanding experience for their customers. But before we get into more of that, let me give you a quick overview of what today's session is all about. So we're going to look a little bit at some industry trends. We're going to talk about the why, what, who and how we benchmark. We will, of course, announce our winner and our 2022 top 10. And then we're going to hear a little bit of some insights from the assessment and a Q&A with our winner. Then, of course, we're going to have questions at the end. So let's jump into it. Let's talk some industry trends over the last couple of years, because there is no denying the enormous impact COVID has had on the contact centre industry. And I'm certain that everyone on this call is aware of the massive challenges. Huge call volumes, long wait times, moving entire contact centres from work to work from home, plus skyrocketing sick leave and attrition were all really common themes that we saw right across the industry. This was the main reason we put our top 10 on hold last year, as we were really unwilling to add to that already stressed system. And in some cases, we were actually unable to get through to assess calls in the first place. Now, those challenges aren't over for most centres, but what we have seen as a point of difference for those contact centres that have stabilised and in many cases shown growth were those that really maintained a consistent focus on coaching and development of their people, ensuring that customer centricity of their conversation, but also that their agents felt supported and engaged through what was often a really relentless period of call taking. With all of this in mind, we did expect to see scores drop overall in the top 10, which they did, however, only very slightly for those who made it into our top 10, which is really a great result given the pressures that we've seen across the board. What was unexpected was our winner, who we will announce shortly, actually came in with a higher score than what we've seen over the last few years, which is a massive achievement. We're going to hear a little bit more about this from our winner later and how they've turned their focus on the quality of their conversation into some pretty impressive performance growth as well. But I want to break down the assessment for you. So this year we did things a little bit differently. Round one, we looked at a data analysis of all the largest contact centres across Australia. We used several data points from both previous top 10s and some interim assessments that we made over the last year to determine who would go through to our assessment round this year. From here, we shortlisted 34 companies that we assessed across 6 industries. These calls were then assessed against GRIST's behavioural sales framework, and this is made up of 70 micro-behaviours, really allowing us to determine which micro-behaviours an agent was demonstrating or not. Now, these calls, on all of our calls, are warm leads, which means there were no difficult customers. Our analysts really approach these calls with the aim to give your agents ample opportunity to demonstrate as many customer-centric behaviours as they can. But let's have a little look at the 6 industries that we analysed this year. We have energy, we had banking, health insurance, life insurance, general insurance and internet providers. Notably, travel insurance was removed from this pool as the travel industry is still recovering post-COVID. But I'm sure you are all waiting on the edge of your seat to see who the winner was. Shall we have a look? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Congratulations. Noble Oak. We have some of the Noble Oak leaders on the webinar with us today to talk about what this win means to them and what they've actioned as a team to get to the #1 spot. But I also know, and I think I could nearly hear them, we had all of the Noble Oak team listening in as well. I want to throw out a huge congratulations on a very well-deserved win from Noble Oak. But it's not just about you, Noble Oak. It's not just about our winners. We also want to have a look at our top 10 overall. So in our #1 spot, we know we had Noble Oak. #2, we had AHM, a very good year for life insurance. Taking our third podium finish is UE. And then rounding out our top 10, we have a couple of our previous winners. We have NIB and Energy Australia in there. A dominant show from the health insurance sector with Compare the Market, iSelect, La Trobe and Bupa. And then a new entrant with ANZ taking out our 10th spot. We've had a couple of financial sector companies crack the top 10 in the past, but ANZ is actually our first everyday banking company to take a top spot. So a huge congratulations and well done to all of the companies that made it into the top 10. This result is really a testament to your steely focus on customer experience through what was undoubtedly a really difficult year. But now, celebration aside, I'm sure you're all crying out, show me the data. So let's jump into it. Now, here you can see we have a bit of a layout of our industry data, and you can see right from the outset that life insurance as an industry was well out in front, and you saw that demonstrated with our 1 and 2 spot. They were followed by health insurance, and then after that, we saw only a small margin between energy, the internet providers, and general insurance, with banking a little lower as a whole. So this sort of result was fairly consistent to what we've seen in previous years, with a little bit of swapping around for some of our middle groups. Now, to look a bit deeper into the breakdown of the conversations we assessed, I'm going to hand over to our resident expert, Senior Behavioural Analyst, Kate Goldby. Kate, take it away.
Thanks, Caitlin, and congratulations to all of our top 10 winners. Let's now jump into a data deep dive and take a look at what is separating those really strong performing contact centres from the pack, and give you some insights that you can apply to your business to improve your customers' experience. Okay, let's have a look at our top 10 companies and how they compare to the others that we benchmark, and we'll call them the rest. So we can see here that overall, the top 10 outperform the rest by 50%. That's quite a variance, as I'm sure you'll agree. So how about we have a look at each of the phases of the conversation here and see how the rest stack up. As you can see here, right from the beginning of the conversation, customers calling top 10 contact centres are receiving a better grade of service. All right, let's have an even deeper look. We'll keep going down and take a look at the average customer journey for a customer calling an Australian contact centre. And we'll have a look at that through 20 of the 70 assessed behaviours. So this representation takes us from the beginning of a call to the end, comparing the experience of a customer speaking to a top 10 contact centre and those calling one of the rest. And of course, we've got our winner in there, Noble Oak, as well, for a bit of comparison. You can see here that all groups follow a pretty similar rhythm. You know, the peaks and the valleys occur in similar spots, but aside from a few behaviours there where the performance is akin, the top 10 contact centres are convincingly and consistently providing a better experience. And this can be seen most significantly in these 4 behaviours. Use the customer name, you identify the why, explain attributes, and confident sales close. Now, those percentages I've got there are the difference between the top 10 and the rest, as we can see here with that orange line there, Noble Oak are even outperforming the top 10. Now, could these behaviours be the key to success? Let's keep diving down and take a look at them specifically. We're going to have a look at what they sound like, how they impact the customer experience, and why top 10 contact centres and our top 10 winner, Noble Oak, use them more frequently. So let's begin with understanding the driver for a customer calling in the first place. We call this identify why and expand on why. So look, too often reactive and transactional consultants jump to product, system, and process questions before developing a real understanding of the underlying reason for a customer calling. The ability to uncover these drivers can help build rapport and connection by expanding the conversation to broader needs, reducing call handling time sometimes, and delivering a much better customer experience by demonstrating genuine interest in the customer. By then asking follow-up questions based on the previous comments and responses, you're not only providing and acquiring additional information to assist with a solution, but it creates a real conversation rather than a process-driven approach, which may yield a fast solution, but that lack of connection can leave customers feeling like just another transaction. So Noble Oak, as we can see here, their consultants, they use the initial customer inquiry as a trigger to ask a question and drill down into the underlying reason behind the call, far more often than even the other top 10 companies, let alone the rest. So what this might sound like is what prompted you to look into life insurance with us at the moment? And then you could follow it up with something like, so you'd like to make sure your family's protected. Is that for something like a mortgage or education? These simple examples can be adapted really easily to suit any industry. Okay, let's have a look now at how the top 10 excelled at connecting with their customers. So using rapport building throughout a conversation personalizes that interaction and goes a long way to instilling customer confidence. Building blocks like using customer name, seeking to engage, and empathizing and enthusing with a customer situation show the customer that you're interested in them as an individual. It can also put them at ease, meaning that they're more open and receptive to proposed solutions later in the conversation. The top 10 contact centers significantly outperform the rest on each of these relationship building micro behaviors, as we can see in this graph. Even for something as simple as referring to a customer by their name, only 1 in 4 consultants from the rest are using it, while Noble Oak consultants are doing it on almost all of their conversations. This first example, of a consultant naturally seeking to engage based on a response to a profiling or admin question is a great way to break up those mandatory components of a quoting process while also enhancing that connection. There are always opportunities to empathize and enthuse on a sales conversation, and here are a couple of examples there. Okay. Now let's have a look at the all-important solution, giving the customer essentially what they came for, right? So summarizing at the close of a needs analysis is incredibly valuable to both the consultant and to the customer. It forces a consultant to reflect on what's happened and it leads to a deeper introspection and getting a better understanding of an issue or situation. Demonstrating to the customer that they've been heard by way of that summary shows a keen interest in their needs and requirements and provides a comfort, building customer trust, and improves a consultant's ability to provide a desired solution. When it comes to providing a solution, some of the most common mistakes that consultants make is to only describe the features of the product. Now, of course, these are important, although, however, a thorough solution should highlight to the customer what makes a product special, its attributes, and how that can solve their concern. It also demonstrates an understanding of what is important to the customers. Two in three consultants from the rest are simply providing a product description as their solution. With online acquisition for most products are given these days, customers who are choosing to call a company are seeking something a little more personalised in their transaction. They're hoping to receive more than just a consultant reading out what's on a website. Noble Oak are consistently going beyond that shallow solution and emphasising attributes and benefits on 87% of their interactions. To perform this micro-behaviour to its fullest capacity, you first need to have understood the driver for a customer calling, the why. And that equips, with that information, you're equipped to explain the features and describe the benefits and attributes. Because Noble Oak, as we saw earlier, have done that so well, they're in the perfect position here to provide a really thorough, unique solution. Now the moment of truth, asking for a sale. Now, I'm sure if I told you that the majority of sales consultants are asking their customers to proceed with a sale on less than 40% of their calls, you'd be pretty surprised, right? Well, guess what? That's what's happening. The rest are only asking 40% of the time for a clear, confident sale. The fear of rejection, that's what's preventing so many consultants from confidently asking for that sale. But where does this come from? And why do consultants from the top 10 contact centres, and in particular Noble Oak, not have this fear? It comes down to the fact that they've earned the right to ask for the sale. Throughout their conversation with customers, we've seen them find the driver for the customer's call. We've seen them build rapport and engagement, and we've heard them clearly and thoroughly present a solution. So at this point in the conversation, a consultant that's done all that hard work should have no fear in asking for the sale. Of course, not all customers are going to proceed, but it's pretty hard for a customer to say yes if you don't ask them, right, Caitlin?
Absolutely, Kate. I think that some consultants feel like they might get a bit pushy if they ask for that sale, but you can kind of see when you set up that first half of your conversation really well, that confidence becomes a really natural, and then from a customer point of view, a really necessary part of the conversation. The customer wants to be asked at that point about how they're going to proceed. I think it's a great point. Now, it's my very great pleasure to introduce our winners and to hear a little bit from them. Today, with us from Noble Oak, we have Moana Kolesi, Head of Sales. We have Stephen McCarrick, Senior Sales Team Leader, Taylor Ralph, Sales Team Leader, and we're also going to hear from Anthony Brown, Noble Oak's CEO. Now, Moana, I'd love to get a bit of background on your journey to number one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Caitlin and Kate. I do just want to first say congratulations to the other companies who have placed in the top 10. And of course, thank you to GRIST, especially Mike Dunn. Our journey began back in 2017, where we partnered up with GRIST to provide training to upskill a relatively new sales team. We were benchmarked just to get an idea of the areas and strengths of opportunity. And then we tailored a training program that actually focused on the lower scoring micro behaviours. We have always had a client-first approach within the sales team, but we wanted to have more engaging conversations with our clients, as well as close with confidence. And that's what our training programs were actually built around. Since 2017, we get benchmarked twice a year, and each time we actually focus on 1 to 2 new micro behaviours. So the skill of the team not only improves year on year, but most importantly, we're having more engaging quality conversations with our clients. Just quickly, 5 years ago, we would have actually ranked or placed 50th on the GRIST leaderboard. In 2020, we placed number 2 on the GRIST leaderboard, and I am extremely proud to say that we've now achieved our goal in placing number 1. So I do just want to say congratulations to our very passionate and talented sales team, as well as the sales leaders. And I hope you're very proud of the achievement because you've definitely earned it. Back over to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Moana. And you're absolutely right. You know, training is so important. It gives you the tools, but to embed that, it requires the persistence and resilience, and your team deserves all of the credit for this fantastic achievement. Okay, so we've seen how you've improved your top 10 position. Now I'd like to go to Stephen. Would you be able to give us some insight into how that has translated into other metrics in your business?
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Caitlin. So since 2017, we've actually seen a 20.9% increase in one of our main conversion metrics and a 12.8% increase in one of our many client satisfaction surveys as well, one of the satisfaction scores. And this is mainly due to the amount of talent we have within the team, as well as lots of coaching around having open discussions with the client and always asking for the business on all relevant calls. One of the many things we did as a team after our first set of benchmarking was roll out a new script, which moved away from a transactional approach to a more of a two-way conversational approach. We did this by removing a lot of our non-mandatory scripting and replacing it with bullet points or suggestions, just to encourage our consultants to have a more natural conversation. Of course, we couldn't remove the kind of compliance-related scripting, but we did remove a lot of the kind of unnecessary wording. We then moved on to changing our QA scorecards, the fact with micro-behaviours that we've been focusing on, such as discovery questions, showing empathy and asking for the business. The QA team not only focuses on the compliance aspect of the call, but also the customer experience. So the scorecards are weighted equally 50% compliance and 50% client experience. We actually seen a 7% increase in the past 5 years with overall QA scores. And kind of as a business, we have a unified approach across all departments at Noble Oak, and the focus is always on whether or not the client is better off. And it just relates back to the company's core values.
Great. And it's terrific to see that approach is simply asking for the business, which we saw evidence of earlier in the data, has really played through to a real increase in sales conversion. It seems, pretty obvious correlation, right? Yeah. So thanks for that, Stephen. Right, I'd like to go to Taylor now. Stephen spoke about a change in your QA scorecards to include discovery micro-behaviours, and Noble Oak showed significant improvement in these, which flowed through to a comprehensive solution presentation. Now, it's all well and good to include things in scorecards, but what do you think the key to your success in driving that change was?
Thanks, Kate. I think there would be 4 key drivers. The first would be our collaborative approach and our common goal of always putting the client first. As a company, we do have regular routines. One of these routines we have in place is holding regular calibration sessions. That's not only with our QA team, but it's also with our client services team and executive teams as well. It's just great to get a new perspective as well as identify as a business how we can improve our calls for our clients. With the second key driver, it would be our recruitment approach. So with our approach, instead of actually looking for experienced sales agents, we look at people who strongly align with our company values. And the reason for this is generally experienced sales agents, they've either been conditioned or they're comfortable in selling in a certain way, which makes the speed to competency harder. We can actually teach and train, also provide all the tools for somebody to become successful in sales, but it's much harder to train behaviors. The third would be our process is very simple. So you don't need to implement any sort of elaborate coaching or training programs. You just need to be consistent in your coaching and the message, and then continue to optimize in all areas. To be extremely strong in one area is better than being okay in 10 different areas, and that's always been our approach. And finally, as mentioned earlier, so we do get benchmarked every 6 months. From this, we pick 1 to 2 different micro behaviors we do want to improve on, and then we work on those areas until the next round of benchmarking or until we're completely confident in those areas. From there, we'll pick another 1 to 2 areas that we want to focus on for another 6 months, and the cycle continues, and it has done so for the past 5 years.
Fantastic. And so you mentioned that simple, consistent coaching was the key to driving, the change in behaviour you wanted to see in your consultants. Taylor, can you tell us a little bit more about the coaching culture in Noble Oak?
Yeah, of course. So our coaching culture at Noble Oak is very strong. One of the main duties as a leader is to coach and develop the people within our team. So we do have regular rhythms in place so that our team is getting coached 2 to 3 times per fortnight. But we also have coaching targets and trackers in place just to ensure that we are hitting those KPIs as well, or those targets as well. And when we coach, we not only identify the areas of improvement, but we also look at the strengths within the core. So we look to only have 1 or 2 areas of improvement that will have the greatest impact for our agents. We call this the 80-20 rule. So if you focus on 20% of the highest impact areas, it will usually make up the 80% of the results that you do see. But before I hand back to Kate, I might just see, Steve, do you have anything you would like to add on the back of that?
Yeah, no worries. To ensure that the coaching provided is quality, we not only measure the stats linked to the areas that we've been coaching, we also hold fortnightly coaching calibration sessions with all the sales leaders just to ensure that we are focused on the right areas, just to make sure we are all aligned in the approach. In addition to our coaching sessions, we also have yearly development plans where we set milestones over the course of the following 12 months. This is to help the team achieve not only their business goals, but also their personal goals as well.
I love that. Thank you, Stephen and Taylor. Terrific results there, and such music to our ears to hear about the coaching rhythm you have in place. Invest in your people and you'll see that flow through to so many areas of business. Thank you again. Moana, high attrition was something that we saw as a trend across contact centres over the last couple of years. I mentioned that earlier, that when we saw contact centres that were less affected by attrition, they were the ones that did hold fast to the coaching development. So I'm interested to know, how did this play out for Noble Oak?
Good question. I will just say we have actually been very fortunate in this area because we do have a core group of people within the sales team who have an average tenure of around 3.5 years, which is high for a sales contact centre. As Taylor and Steve mentioned earlier, our coaching culture is extremely strong at Noble Oak. The development of our people is priority. Not only do we have strong tenure across the team, but we do have, and we have also seen our sales consultant move into and up in different roles across all areas of the business. Of course, we have seen our fair share of challenges in attracting new talent, but it just reaffirms the crucial need to invest in your people and the talent within your business.
Thanks, Moana. I love that Noble Oak have held on to their development culture through a really tough couple of years. It's real credit to you and to your leaders. Now, we did catch up with Noble Oak CEO Anthony Brown as well prior to this webinar to talk about that impact of COVID and what it's had on the business, and ask why in such a difficult year did Noble Oak see marked improvement. So here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Brown and I'm the CEO of Noble Oak. And I'm very proud of the team for winning the GRIST Award. Congratulations. A huge thanks to GRIST for the award. We've been partners for over 5 years and it's always been a really valuable partnership. I was asked just to touch on customer needs over the last couple of years through COVID and how we've dealt with them. And being a life insurer, customers were particularly focused on life insurance, their own mortality, and just a little bit worried about life overall. So having a really empathetic call centre that's on the front foot, can handle objections really well, can handle concerns and have good quality two-way conversations was particularly important. Our flexible script that allows us to have those two-way conversations as well as obviously being compliant is important. And our QA function, reviewing both the compliance but also the quality of the calls was also important. And we always want to make sure the customer is better off at the end of every call. So I do want to say a massive thank you to our incredible quality leaders, Moana, Steve, Taylor and Sunny. You've done an amazing job. And of course to the whole team for winning this award and just doing such a great job putting the customer first at all times during a challenging period. Congratulations to Noble Oak. It's a wonderful win for us. and I really believe it's thoroughly deserved. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Well, thank you again to NovaOak for sharing your journey with us. It's now time for questions. Now, we have Stacey, our Senior Data Analyst and Product Innovation Manager. She has been manning the chat. Stacey, what have you got for us?
Yes, I actually had one question. It was about the effect of compliance. So considering the huge amount of compliance regulation in the financial industry, including non-advice, no advice, and general advice, how can businesses maintain their focus on customers and at the same time be compliant?
That's a great question, and one we get asked quite a lot, really, when we look at some benchmarking across industries, because you're probably all aware compliance is a massive part of that. It really is a key part of the customer conversation, and really without compliance, it's not truly a customer-centric experience. So we're very conscious of this when we design our behavioural assessments. So every micro-behaviour you've seen today in our benchmark can be demonstrated regardless of the advice model you're working under. And that same thing goes for other regulations like anti-hawking. So it's compliant by design. We're very aware that it's not always relevant to talk about other products or cross-sell, but there's always an opportunity to add more value for customers, whether that's through extra information, other services, or different ways of doing things. So you can kind of see how that compliance is a huge factor. It doesn't actually stop the client-centric part of your conversation, though. There are always ways to build that connection, dig a little deeper, and provide that extra value. Any other questions, Stacey?
I think that one was more for Kate. Kate, you mentioned that you rarely hear confident sales close in the conversations, but what do you hear when you assess this kind of conversations?
Yeah. So a lot of the time we're hearing passive or trial-like closes, something like, do you think you'd like to sign up, or do you want to have a think about it? Something that's very, I guess, wishy-washy and not a clear, confident offer of sale. But even more than that, we're hearing just that offer of sale not happening at all. We're hearing so many consultants jumping to, provision of next steps, offering to send out quotes, or, jumping straight to a close conversation, or even just, everyone's favorite thing, sitting there in awkward silence until someone makes a first move. So this was far less frequent in NovaOak, who were clearly and confidently asking for the sale, but that's what was happening in those other times.
Okay, thanks, Kate. And I think there's another one question for Moana and her team. So you mentioned that 2-3 coaching sessions a fortnight. What does a day in the life of your leaders look like, along with team sizes?
I might take this one and see if the leaders want to jump off the back of that one. To be completely honest, we focus primarily on coaching in the development of our staff or agents. We try and avoid loads of admin work or different duties that take their focus away from the overall development. So to be completely honest, it's coaching, one-on-ones, support, especially with some of our people working remote and on teams. But going back to their primary focus is to coach and develop. So they'll be on the floor, side-by-side coaching, whether it's listening to calls or having calibrations to improve overall skill. That's primarily what they do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Stephen or Taylor, did you want to add anything to that one? Just a day in the life of a leader?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess we like to have an atmosphere of support on the floor, so not just amongst the sales leaders, but also amongst the agents as well, and especially some of the more senior agents. And yeah, it's just a case of regular check-ins, regular coaching sessions, but just kind of maintaining that kind of level of support and the kind of positive culture in the team. And everyone's always sharing best practice, and when we have new trainees come in, obviously they'll be trained on the script and the processes and the products, and then when they hit the floor, they're always kind of side by side with seniors, kind of learning kind of the way they do it, and kind of hopefully mirroring their successes
Excellent. I've just seen, Stephen, I think we've lost it there for a second, but I just saw another question that came up as well. Again, for the Noble Oak leaders, Taylor, I might throw this one to you. How many consultants have you got working from home, or do you have consultants working from home still?
Yeah, so we do have a few working from home. We do have a flexible working policy where sometimes they will be working from home versus sometimes in the office. But we do have some remote people like in Victorian, like WA, things like that.
Great. And so have you found that hybrid working, having the remote working is working for you, Taylor?
Yeah, so primarily most people are in the office, but it would be only like 1 or 2 days per week, based off a few different factors. Primarily in the office, but we do have a few, like maybe 2 or 3 working from home.
Great. We've got a couple more. They're coming in thick and fast now, the questions. How many direct reports do you have, Stephen or Taylor?
It kind of varies depending on like how many staff I've got at the time, but at the moment I think it's about 10 each, and then we've got a few more coming through at the moment and training as well.
Stacey, any that I've missed there?
There is another question, and you mentioned that you, over the last 5 years, were working with us and participating in the benchmarking. So what were your biggest learning takeouts from that experience?
I think you're able to actually have or uncover the needs of a client and provide solutions without going down the advice pathline. So I think a lot of sales contact centers are a little bit scared to have the needs-based conversation because they don't want to obviously then be in sticky situations where it does cross the compliance hawking boundaries, if that makes sense. So I think that was our biggest eye-opener, that we can actually have quality conversations with our customers and not provide advice over the phone.
Love that, Moana. It's such a key part of sales, isn't it? Stay compliant, stay within those lines, but still think about the customer at the centre of that conversation. It still has to be a great experience. Stacey, any last questions there?
No, I think this is it.
We've got through everything. Fantastic. All right, before we finish up, I just want to touch on, we've focused on and celebrated the sales conversation today, but we haven't forgotten about your service centres. Kate, I don't know if you've got another slide there, but there should be one more slide that we have in our pack. So if we don't, that's okay. Last year, here we are. Last year, we launched our Service Excellence Award in partnership with AusContact. Now, if you're a member of AusContact and you've nominated to be part of the AusContact Awards, you're also eligible to enter the Service Excellence Award. And I believe we have quite a few on the call, I know, who have already entered this. So we do want to look after your service teams as well as your sales ones. Now, the due date for getting some of the calls across to us to be assessed is tomorrow. But if this is something that you've been thinking about, but you're yet to action, it's not too late. So get in contact with our Head of Operations, Lucy. Her email is on the screen. If you do have something you want to submit or if you have questions. Now, the Service Excellence Award will be announced in November as part of AusContact's National Awards. As we finish up, and we are finishing up a little early, so I can give you some time back in your day, I would love to say a huge thank you to our guests today and our top 10 winners. Moana, Stephen, Taylor, Anthony, and team, the whole team, thank you so much for giving us your time and insights, and congratulations again on an outstanding win. I also want to say thank you to our team of analysts who do all the hard work every year to assess many thousands of calls in our top 10. And also to my co-host and resident expert, Kate, and to our support, Stacey. Finally, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you for everyone who has joined us today. I hope you've really enjoyed our deep dive into the top 10 results. As I mentioned earlier, we will have a recording of this webinar available very soon, and that link will be emailed out to all of you. Feel free to share that across your networks or with your team, however you feel fit. And as always, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us and we're happy to answer anything you'd like. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.